kun jaksoitte odottaa, ettekä paineet. Tilaisuus on nyt virallisesti alkanut, että me saadaan ensin muutama sana Pekka Aulalta, joka on Suomalaisen tiedeakatemian pääsihteeri. Kertoo vähän, että missä me ollaan ja miksi. Ja mä jatkan sitten siitä Octohackin idealla ja teemalla ja sitten tulee vielä Valtteri Wikströmiltä puheenvuoro tästä ällistyksen tunteesta, mitä se on ja voiko sitä mitata jollain tavalla, niin saadaan vähän meidän ideoille ruokaa. Ole hyvä.
Kiitos. Ja tervetuloa Suomalaiseen tiedeakatemiaan sekä Skope ry, Octohack jengi ja sitten ennen kaikkea kaikki, jotka olette tulleet tänne paikalle osallistumaan tähän tilaisuuteen. Tosi kiva nähdä teidät täällä. Mä ajattelin tässä ihan lyhyesti kertoa, missä te olette nyt, koska vanhoilla rakennuksilla on aina tarina ja tällä rakennuksella varsinkin. Me ollaan yhdessä Suomen vanhimman kivitalon Huumenissa. Valmistunut 1861 vai 41? Niina näyttää totta kai 41. Ja tämä rakennutti tämmöinen aikansa suurliikemies kuin Wikström ja hänen perheensä yksityiskäyttöön. Ja Wikström oli tällainen aikansa niin kuin tämmöinen, nyt varmaan sanottaisiin tämmöinen verkottuja, superverkostoituja. Hän oli tämmöinen niin kuin mesenaatti, kulttuurin ja taiteen suuri ystävä. Ja täällä järjestettiinkin siihen 1800-luvun loppupuolella paljon erilaisia tilaisuuksia hänen kotonaan siis. Ja täällä vieraili paljon sen aikaisia julkkiksia ja vaikuttajia, kuten Runeberg, Topelius. Täällä järjestettiin konsertteja ja aika vakio kaveri soittelemassa oli Fredrik Paasius, joka on säveltänyt meidän maamme laulun. Tämä oli semmoinen aikansa hubi. Tänne kokoontui ihmisiä eri varsinkin taiteen ja kulttuurin alueelta. Ja siitäpä tuli mieleen, että tavallaan tässä tämän päivän tilaisuudessa toteutuu vähän tämä sama ajatus. Eli ihmisiä eri puolelta tulee tänne viihtymään ja tapaamaan toisiaan, vuorovaikuttamaan ja tekemään vähän hommiakin siinä sivussa. No sitten Wikströmistä aika jätti ja tämä tuli sitten muuhun käyttöön tämä talo. Ja ehkä semmoinen niin kuin yleisesti kiinnostavaa on, että tässä 1920 tähän muutti Marsakka Mannerheim tähän kyseiseen huoneistoon, missä nyt just ollaan. Ja hän asui tässä 3 vuotta vuokralla. Tämä oli hänen salonkinsa ja sitten tuo huone, joka tuossa on vieressä, niin tuutte siellä käymään varmaan, niin siinä oli oletettavasti ja todennäköisesti hänen makuuhuoneensa, jossa oli sitten kenttävuode ja näin päin. Se on pieni, mutta kiinnostava Palatan talon historiaa. Siinä tulitte tuosta sisään, niin siinähän oli hissi. Ja tämä hissi oli jo 1920, mutta Mannerheim ajatteli, että se on ruma ja hyödytön kapistus ja puratti sen pois rakentaakseen sen sitten uudestaan, kun hän lähti sitten tästä jatkomatkaansa itse asiassa kaivopuistoon. No Mannerheimin ajan jälkeen tässä on ollut monenlaista toimijaa. Tai nyt se sen verran, että Mannerheim sitten perustettiin tässä tiloissa, ja jos se myös toimi ensin, siis Mannerheimin lastensuojeluliitto, kun se on nimeltään MLL. Joo. Ja se perustettiin tuossa, missä teillä on kattaus, tai tuossa me kutsutaan sitä Jutikkaala-saliksi. Sitten tässä pyöri, täällä on ollut Belgian suurlähetystö, täällä on ollut Helsingin yliopiston humanistisen tiedekunnan seminaarikirjasto, ja täällä on pidetty luentoja. Täällä on ollut toi yksi oikeusaste, eli onko se raastuvan oikeus. Ja siltä jälkeen tuolla on vielä tuolla ylimmässä kerroksessa, siellä on yksi ainakin vielä putka, joka nykyään toki varastona henkilökunnan virkistäytymistilan, mutta siellä on yksi vanha putka tuolla ylhäällä. Että tässä on hyvin moninaisia kerrostumia tässä rakennuksessa. Ja yliopiston jälkeen tässä sitten oli tämä oikeus ja sitten sen jälkeen monta erityyppistä toimia, mutta sitten kun siirryttiin nykyajalle, niin tiedeakatemia tuli tähän 2002. Ja tässä toimi silloin myös muita tiedeseuroja. Ja sitten vähän myöhemmin 2007 Tiedeakatemia sitten osti tämän kerroksen, missä te nyt olette. Ja tämä muutettiin sitten Tiedeakatemian käyttöön yksinään. Ja nyt sitten ihan pari vuotta sitten niin meillä on tullut niin paljon porukkaa ja toiminta laajentunut, että me sitten hankittiin tämä koko talo ja meidän käytössä on nyt sitten tämä kerros. Sitten meillä on henkilökunnat tuossa 3. kerroksessa. Mutta talo jatkaa elämistään ja kuten tuossa totesin, niin on tosi mahtavaa, että meillä on tämän tyyppinen tapahtuma täällä. Me aina silloin tällöin, kun on hyvä syy, niin tietenkin annetaan näitä tiloja sitten käyttöön myös. No mitä Tiedeakatemia sitten? Mä voin tässä miettiä, me tehdään niin paljon kaikkea, että miten mä sen koettaisin tiivistää, mutta voitaisiin ajatella niin, että Tiedeakatemia pyrkii vaikuttamaan ja pohtii keinoja, miten tiede ja tutkimus voisi edistää inhimillistä hyvää elämää. Se on jossain siellä niin kuin ytimessä, mitä me tehdään, ja hyvää tulevaisuutta. Meillä on eri tapoja sitä toteuttaa, mutta ne nyt ei sinänsä ole kauhean niin kuin merkityksellisiä tai, niin kuin tai ne ei ole niin merkityksen, siis sanomisen arvoisia verrattuna tähän päämäärään, mikä meillä on. Me jotenkin ajatellaan niin, että me rakennetaan verkostoja, siis tieteen tekijöiden ja tutkijoiden kesken, että sitten tieteen ja muun yhteiskunnan toimijoiden kanssa. Sitä me tehdään hyvin voimakkaasti, eli me toimitaan tieteen parhaaksi, mutta sitten yhteiskunnan hyväksi. Meillä on hyvin voimakkaasti viime vuosina tämä yhteiskunnallinen ulottuvuus. Me nähdään, että vuorovaikutus on keino tehdä tätä maailmaa vähän paremmaksi kuin se ehkä on nyt ja tulevaisuutta paremmaksi. Se on ehkä yksi semmoinen niin kuin yleiskuvio, mihin me uskotaan. Toinen on, että me uskotaan siihen, että tiedettä ja tutkimusta on hyvä tehdä näkyväksi. Miksi niin? Että sekä tutkijoita itseään, mutta tieteen saavutuksia, tieteen tekemistä, tieteen menetelmiä ja tieteen erilaisia osa-alueita tehdä näkyväksi. Itse asiassa siinä on vähän sama, mitä sitten Scope ry tekee sitten omassa toiminnassaan. Se on hirveän tärkeää. Ja sitä kautta tulee niin kuin ajatus siitä, että vasta niin kuin tietyllä tavalla vasta silloin tiede saavuttaa sen merkityksellisyytensä, kun se on yhteisesti jollain tavalla jaettua. Niin kuin sen yhteiskunnallisen merkityksensä. Ja me koetaan se kauhean tärkeäksi. Me tehdään paljon erilaisia asioita tämän niin kuin, vähän niin kuin tommosen niin kuin ylätason tavoitteen saavuttamiseksi. Ja sitten vielä ehkä kolmantena, jos tätä jotenkin yrittää tiivistää, niin on, että kyllä Tiedeakatemia haluaa vaikuttaa. Ja me halutaan vaikuttaa yhteiskunnalliseen päätöksentekoon sillä tavalla, että kun tehdään päätöksiä, poliittisia päätöksiä, yhteiskunnallisia ja muita päätöksiä, niin aina me osallistutaan siihen, että ainakin niin periaatteessa ja käytännössäkin päättäjillä olisi saatavilla ja tarjolla se viimeisin tutkittu tieto, mitä on olemassa. Se on meille itse asiassa hyvin tärkeä tehtävä. Se on itse asiassa ollut siellä, ei nämä mitään tänä päivänä syntyneitä, vaan ne on ollut siellä se on meidän DNA:ssa ja perimässä 1908, jolloin Tiedeakatemia on. Mutta silloin vähän tietenkin eri muodoissaan ajan hengen mukaisesti. Eli me rakennetaan verkostoja, rakennetaan yhteyksiä, me tehdään tiedettä näkyväksi ja sitten me pyritään vaikuttamaan, että yhteiskunnassa tehdään niin kuin fiksuja päätöksiä siten, kun siihen nyt voidaan sitten tiedettä ja tutkimusta tuoda avuksi. Ja tämän kautta me uskotaan, että tiede, kun sitä tässä mielessä kuuluu kaikille, niin on mahdollista, että voidaan auttaa parempaa elämää, hyvää elämää ja siten parempaa tulevaisuutta. Mutta tässä hyvin lyhyesti Tiedeakatemia, jos haluatte kuulla lisää. Meillä on täällä itse asiassa Tiedeakatemian porukkaa paikalla, mikä on tosi kiva. Tässä on Jaakko, joka on teidän kanssa nämä 2 päivää täällä. Sitten tuolla on Leila, joka myös osallistuu tänään aikansa puitteissa teidän toimintoja. Sitten siellä on Emilia ja Niina, jotka ovat täällä myös. Ja jos haluatte tietää Tiedeakatemiasta enemmän, niin kääntykää mun puoleen tai sitten Danielin puoleen. Mä muistin kaikki mainita. Kiitos paljon, kun sain tulla avaatte ja kiva, kun olette täällä. Ei mulla muuta. Kiitos.
siitä, että me saadaan olla täällä. Mä ajattelin seuraavaksi ryhtyä kertomaan teille, että mistä tässä tapahtumassa on kyse. Sitä ennen voisin semmoisen kieliasian varmistaa, että do we have people who only speak English? Mennään englanniksi, mulla on kalvoja sekä suomeksi että englanniksi täällä. Ja sitten kun pääsette toisinne tutustumaan ja tekemään töitä yhdessä, niin saatte ihan itse päättää, että mitä kieltä käytätte. In this presentation, I'd like to sort of cover the theme or the idea behind the Octohack. And there are actually two themes that we're trying to unite in this happening, and that is science or knowledge, reliable knowledge, and then a very specific feeling called the experience of awe. I won't go that much into the experience of awe because that will be the topic of Valtteri, who will present what it means, how you might measure it. But I'll more kind of focus on what we're aiming at with this event and go through the schedule and what we sort of expect to happen. We have hopes and dreams, but a lot of this is up to you and what you wish to accomplish during this seminar. But first, how about we think about knowledge and reliable knowledge and the history of science a little bit. I've been really interested in the concept of rationality recently, because it seems to at times be very scarce among humans. We may be super intelligent, we may have very specialized skills, but a lot of us have really distinct biases in our thinking. We might believe lies very easily, we might become superstitious in many ways. And perhaps one reason for this is that it's a super new thing for humans to be rational, or to have the ability to find out how the world works. The largest part of our history has been just kind of being at the mercy of what happens in the world without the faculties of finding out why did we get a thunderstorm or why did we lose this crop. And perhaps this is why biases and irrationality is so prevalent in human thinking even today. It's sort of in our DNA. It's how we fared in this world previously, and we did okay, even though we didn't have the scientific method to find out how the world works and build reliable knowledge. With that said, the history of the scientific method and reliable knowledge is also very long. I did some digging, so this is from Wikipedia, which means that we have to be sort of skeptical whether this story is true or not. But I find it fascinating how the scientific method seems to emerge in many different cultures and over again during human history. It's about making observations about how the world works, creating hypotheses of what might happen if we do A or B, testing and then coming to conclusions and distributing this knowledge. And the method seems to work, it's very prevalent, and the reason for its sort of success and prevalence is because it does produce reliable knowledge. It helps us do better in this world. It helps us solve really tricky problems and kind of survive in a sense. Well, jumping to the world of today, you could say that it's very complex, especially compared to the Stone Age or previous civilizations. I think many people feel that the pace of change is very, very kind of fast in the modern world, and there are problems emerging at such a pace that it's somehow tricky to find the correct information, create things that work in response to how the world is changing. But at the same time as the complexity of the world and the amount of kind of problems in the world have grown, also science has responded. There's a lot of research happening all the time. Seems to be more and more PhD students every year trying to create pieces and bits of knowledge that would help us understand better how the world works, solve problems that originate from the complexity of the world. But herein lies a problem, and that is that sometimes stuff doesn't happen that would help this knowledge reach the individuals that could make use of the knowledge in solving problems in their own life. And at times I think that scientific knowledge or reliable knowledge is presented in a way that somehow bums people out. This is in Finnish. I did a small survey online. I've done this before using the keywords tutki ja lyttää So that might be translated into a researcher kind of squashes a belief. And researchers seem to squash many beliefs. And I think this is sort of perhaps part of the problem why scientific knowledge doesn't always reach people in an impactful way or help us in our everyday lives. Sometimes we create this picture of scientists as people who kind of come over and destroy all the mystery in the world and kind of take all the fun stuff out from your beliefs or your wishes of how the world might be. So what to do? Perhaps one thing would be to somehow realize that knowledge is in itself, or at least I feel that knowledge in itself is very, very often truly amazing and awe-inspiring. There are so many findings emanating from research every day that, at least in me, sort of blow my mind. And perhaps the trick would be to somehow find a way to kind of present scientific knowledge in a way that speaks to the feelings that are innate to human beings, that kind of help us ingest knowledge, make use of knowledge, and learn more effectively. Human beings are inherently really curious beings. If you think of children, they're super curious about everything in their environment very often. They find experiences of awe in the kind of craziest things. If you've ever tried to kind of get from place A to place B with a toddler, it's very difficult because their attention is grasped by the smallest things in the world that you haven't kind of viewed as curious or awe-inspiring. And perhaps this is something that we slightly lose as we transgress into adulthood. We perhaps have such set models of the world and this experience that we already know everything, that we kind of lose the ability to see the awe-inspiring moments or kind of stimuli in our environment. So this is what the Octohack is about. This is just a proposal. We as a group can decide what is the actual kind of angle we want to take on these two themes: knowledge, helping knowledge become more attainable, and the experience of awe. But I propose that we might think of these two questions. What kind of knowledge should be more attainable to individuals today? What kind of findings could people make use of in their everyday lives that isn't kind of attainable at the moment? What kind of knowledge do we really need to survive in this really complex world? And how could this knowledge evoke the experience of awe? How could we make perhaps knowledge that at first seems slightly boring awesome? For instance, we had this is just a suggestion. We had an interesting discussion with Saara, who's part of our team. She loves the Finnish language and grammar rules. And we had a discussion on whether you could make punctuation rules somehow awesome. Voisiko pilkkusäännöt ällistyttää ihmisiä? No, that's a challenge if anyone is interested in how to make. Is grammar even the right word here? What are kielioppisäännöt? I think it's grammar, yeah. But just to kind of give you a thought of what it might be. Just to introduce the larger team here, you recognize us from our shirts. Valtteri is not yet wearing his, but most of the team is wearing the Octohack shirt, so you will recognize us from that. And we're responsible for making sure you're okay, comfortable, fed, you have enough coffee, and you know what to do and what the schedule is. So we are here for you, to kind of support you in getting to know each other, having a good time during this weekend. And we really appreciate that you took the time to come over here, and we're already awe-inspired by the group that we have here. We have our social media prodigy Nanuk over there. She'll be posting stuff on social media, and at any time if you do not want to be photographed or don't want to be posted on one of our posts, just tell her and we'll take that into account. Photography here is by Piret. She'll be in and out perhaps during the couple of days, and as with Nanuk, just tell Piret if you don't want to be photoed. Now I put Valtteri responsible for gadgets because we do have all kinds of gadgets here. If you're interested in eye tracking, I can help you with that. We have all kinds of electrodes and sensors and wires and stuff in the red box here. If your idea or your discussion entails using them, you can ask Valtteri. But Valtteri will also be working on his own thing for tomorrow, which will be super interesting. It has to do with our judges of awesomeness. We have some expert play help. Perhaps I won't say any more about that, but we have Juhani Laaksonen over there who will help us play in a bit. You'll see what it means when he gets going. And tomorrow you'll meet the rest of our judges. Pekka will be one of the judges giving feedback on what we come up with during the weekend. We'll also have Minna Huotilainen from the University of Helsinki and Lulu Salmi and Henri Tikkanen from Yle Tiede, just to have like a sounding board on the ideas we come up with. And to make things even more interesting, we'll try to devise, Valtteri mostly, we'll try to devise a way to measure the experience of awe in one of the judges during your final presentations. So we'll have an objective measure on whose solution is most awesome, just to have fun with the idea and measurement. So what happens during a hackathon? I think it's a concept that's very familiar to us already. We've been having hackathons for ages. But I like to think about it as a tool for creation, which means that instead of just having a discussion or bouncing ideas around, we actually finish something. I don't know about you, but at least for me, modern working life is often plagued by the sense of inaccomplishment. Things are never finished. You can never sort of close the book on what you're doing. So let's try to create an experience during this weekend where you together finish something. What might it be? Well, it might be a concept, a prototype, a paper prototype of something, your response to the questions we just saw related to the theme. And we would like you to prepare a presentation for the judges, of course. We could keep them short, maximum 5 minutes, just so it kind of is fresh, but we can agree upon this together, see what kind of suits you the best. What could it be? Well, it could be like a 3-minute video. You could video something on your phones. It could be a show and tell sort of presentation with hand puppets, who knows. It could be a song, a play, or a dance. You can be as creative as you want. The theme is the experience of awe. So of course, we would like to experience the feeling of awe when we have these presentations. And during the final presentations that will be streamed, hello people watching the stream, I'll kind of be there asking some questions, and please be prepared to answer the questions that I ask. That's kind of the outcome we're looking for, something that is ready and that you're able to present at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. The schedule is sort of like this. Today's Friday. We'll next have our play session with Juhani, and then we'll guide you through a session for creating ideas and forming teams. Then we'll have some teamwork, and then we'll have pizza. On Saturday, we'll have breakfast, teamwork, lunch, teamwork, dinner. So we'll be eating and having discussions together. Basically, that's the schedule. And the closing seminar starts at 6. And we'll have feedback from the judges, plus the live measurement of awe. How does that sound for the time being? Of course, everything is up to discussion and joint decisions on how we want to proceed. One more word about the Octohack. It's a part of a project called FINSCI. It relates to Finnish science capital. So science capital is a concept that describes how near science is to an individual, how much they can make use of science in their everyday lives, what their attitudes are. Do they have access to scientific knowledge and science in general? So our team at Scope is responsible for the interaction and science communication activities in the FINSCI project, which is a cool project that I suggest you all take a look into. And lastly, we'd really like to thank the Suomalainen Tiedeakatemia for having us over. I think this is an amazing opportunity to do perhaps weird things, very creative things in this sort of super historical setting. With that in mind, let's try to be careful with all the seemingly very expensive art we have on the walls, and there are these statues over in the other room that I'm fearful of. But don't worry, the people in the Octohack shirt will be guiding or guarding the paintings. That's it for me. Do you have any questions on the theme?
All clear.
All clear. Great. Then we'll have Valtteri come on stage next.
All right, so hello everyone. I'm Valtteri. I'm a researcher in FINSCI and a member of Scope ry, and yeah, we have already been presented.
Sorry.
That's right. So one of my current research topics is awe and some related concept or ideas like amazement and wonder, which are the themes today of this hackathon. So, well, what I do generally is research emotions and kind of social relationship between people and so on, with like brain measurements and that kind of things, and also some prototypes. But when it comes to this emotion research, like a necessary part is to study the meaning of words. So emotions are generally quite hard things to put into words, as we maybe all have experienced sometimes, and because of this, maybe the definitions of emotions can vary, and especially between languages, they can be quite different. So for the Finnish people in the audience, I would, for example, usually call awe, or we would call awe ällistys, and we would call wonder ihmetys, but it's never really exact when you, especially with these kind of complex emotion words. But yeah, that's a starting point. But let's first look at what causes awe. So awe can, for example, be caused by this kind of beautiful open view in the nature, very calm and a lot of things to focus on, and very relaxing. But it can also be caused by something kind of also threatening, like the enormity of space. Here's the Carina Nebula, one of the new photographs with the new James Webb telescope. Art is considered to cause awe. You might recognize this Starry Night by Van Gogh. And religious and spiritual experiences are other typical causes, which are characterized by awe. And very famously, astronauts experience the overview effect, which is a profound feeling of connectedness with the Earth and everyone on it. And it's something that only people who have actually been to space and seen the Earth from outside have experienced for real. So also rare, big, impressive, even sometimes dangerous natural phenomena are a common cause for awe. Here is some aurora borealis photographed in Tromsø in Norway. So this feeling, this awe, has been kind of a topic of interest for spiritual leaders and religious scholars and philosophers and artists, like, I guess, kind of as long as they have existed, these kind of people. But psychology has not really dealt with it, maybe because it is so complex and a little bit hard to grab, and maybe has been considered to be part of some other discipline. So it was only in 2003 that two researchers called Keltner and Haidt, they created a definition of awe for psychology, and they defined it as a feeling which requires two things: perception of vastness and a need for accommodation. So in essence, the idea with the need for accommodation is that awe arises when there's incompatibility. So your own experience is incompatible with what you have like inside your mental models. So this requires an adaptation. You have to reconsider yourself in the relationship to what you're now experiencing. And then this perceived vastness is something that can be caused by something physically huge, like a very open view from the mountain top, like here, but it could also be something complex, which is vast because of the complexity, the intellectual part of it, like for example the theory of evolution. If you grasp it suddenly, like what it means for everything on Earth and all the animals and nature, then that can be something that causes awe. Basically, it could be anything that is outside your typical frame of reference. It could be due to scale, time, even power, and so on. All right. And when it comes to the effects of awe, which is of course related then to this was a definition by the theorists, but then studies have been exploring after that in the last almost 20 years then how awe can be caused, what causes awe, and what kind of effects it has. So when it comes to the effects, that there has been certain characteristics which have been found. So one of them is a diminished sense of self. So the experience of yourself becoming smaller. It's also known as the small self, and it can be studied, for example, with this kind of questions. So you ask participants to choose which of these circles represents yourself. So you have to choose how big or small you are. In some other experiments they might have had you draw yourself, and then they have like a horizon and the sun, and then it depends like how big you picture yourself. But this way it has been found out that there's this self-diminishment as an aspect of awe, and it's thought to have a relationship to the fact that awe also has made people more humble in experiments. So people who have experienced awe or are in a state of awe tend to give more credit to others for their accomplishments. The other thing that awe causes is the sense of time getting out of whack and often slowing down. So some research has also shown that awe might make people more prone to experiencing like the current moment, to get into the now and feeling less rushed in their life. And awe also seems to encourage people towards choices which are like part of this like slow life. So also towards learning and creativity, but then towards like spending more time on the task that you currently have. It also causes people to feel more connected to each other and their surroundings. It increases pro-sociality, so people want to help others more if they have experienced awe. This might be in relation to the time thing. They feel like they have more time to help others because they get into the moment. It also, in some study, has been shown to decrease materialism. This was studied in such a way that people could choose as a prize or as for participating in the study. They could choose either like a materialistic reward or then like an experiential reward, so some kind of gift card for some experience. And then people who had been in the awe condition wanted more the experiences than material. And at least one study has shown that it increases criticality towards weak arguments. So if someone makes arguments which is not well founded, someone who has experienced awe will be more critical towards that persuasion. So yeah, awe seems to have a lot of interesting qualities, and it's perhaps different to other emotions, what we typically think of as basic emotions and so on. And this has led to some researchers to start to think that awe is more like an altered state of consciousness, or so-called self-transcendent experience, then putting it parallel to something like mindfulness or the flow state. Awe seems to have a lot of potential for learning and for understanding new things. I mean, it has this feature of accommodation, so it expands the mental models and it directs you towards learning and creativity, and maybe the pro-sociality aspect as well makes it easier to learn together and to work better together. but as a whole, the awe concept is still hard to define as well. It seems that there's so many features of it, and there's something or quite clear distinction within the awe, that there's this kind of positive awe, like considered a positive emotion, but then what Katri mentioned is a threat-based awe, so which is then caused maybe by this something that is so enormous and so powerful that it seems to be able to, or it makes you threatened. So there's a relationship to fear with it, but some forms of awe can also occur without any fear component. So, question we next can approach is why awe has evolved. So these two psychologists back then 20 years ago, Keltner and Haidt, hypothesized that awe has evolved because it maintains social hierarchies. So their original idea was that when you encounter a very powerful person, awe keeps you like a kind of conforming to the social structure that exists. But further studies have indicated that this might not be like a very good evolutionary explanation, because it seems to be a rare way to experience awe toward other people. When people have been kind of recounting or telling about their own awe experience, it's not very usual that they mentioned meeting some person rather than they have experienced these natural phenomena or something else, art and so on. So more recent and more popular evolutionary explanation is that awe makes you focus on learning, and it loosens the mental models. So this kind of removes the attention from within yourself into the environment. So the idea is that due to this experience, you are more prone to encounter new stimuli, build new mental models, and this will give you a competitive advantage. All right. Then about measuring awe, which I will experiment with, and maybe some of you as well. There seems to be kind of different kinds of awe, so this makes it a little bit tricky from the physiological side as well. So it's generally accepted that strong awe appears to cause goosebumps, also known as pillow erection. If you watch the pre-stream, then you maybe could hear us giggling about this. Here you can see a self-built device for measuring these goosebumps, so to detect this skin which becomes like bumpy. And this is kind of accepted. Okay, goosebumps and awe are related, and awe is maybe the second most common reason for goosebumps, with the first most common being cold, feeling cold. But yeah, of course, fear can also cause it. Then it's considered to increase parasympathetic activity, so this kind of calming effect of the autonomous nervous system, which can be measured, for example, with heart rate variability. So when your heart rate has a lot of interbeat variability, then you have more of this parasympathetic activation. But then on sympathetic activity, like rising heart rate would be an increase in sympathetic activity, also sweating, palm sweating, this kind of thing, and maybe also pupil dilation. It's not really clear. It has been shown that threat-based awe unsurprisingly increases sympathetic activity, because it might be related to the kind of fight or flight response, but then other kinds of awe has shown to decrease it. So it's not so it maybe depends on the type of awe, or even on the person, how it affects the and interestingly, awe experience seems to have anti-inflammatory effects. So it increases some what is it called? Hormones in the body which reduce inflammation. What we have been doing is using virtual reality to try to induce awe, or at least to see whether or not it does do that. It has a very immersive experience, so that's why it could be a good way to induce this kind of strong feeling, like awe. And it could also be used in the classroom. Here we see a child wearing a VR headset, so it could be either to present information in an awe-inspiring way, or then to cause awe and loosen these mental models and then use that somehow. But in our research we have been gathering online discussion about awe-inspiring games, and then we have collected mentions of such games. Here's one list of these, counting how many times in these discussions different games have been mentioned, or actually in games and other kinds of apps. So then we took those apps and we were testing them on people, measuring their experience with questionnaires. I have also some questionnaires for you if you want to do something very systematic or tracking, or if you just want to get more familiar to the concept, and with some physiological monitors, but those data are still in analysis. But what we have for you as a result of this research is a bunch of apps and a VR headset here, so maybe to get you inspired and so on. I have some apps that might cause awe, and you can try them later. Like for example here is Google Earth VR, which you can then zoom out and go into space and maybe experience a weak form of this overview effect. And also if you want to use VR in your own project, then talk to me and let's see how we can make it happen. We have some computers and a headset here, and I think we can even get some more headsets if we need.
And we have Bucket VR.
Which
And
headset do you have?
we have a Vive, HTC Vive. So with that, I would like to wish everyone an awesome hackathon, and let's have fun and make some awesome discoveries. Yes. Thank you.
Any questions for Valtteri? Is everything clear?
The budget cuts, was that actual budget cuts or a game?
I think it's the budget cuts is a game, but I don't think we have that. Let's see if we can maybe get it.
Is that
We have like
one you would like to evolve?
anything else? All right. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the opening seminar.